Hello everyone. So this is us once again the weekly explanation video for this week, and okay, I think this is the first position. So okay, it's very complicated. It looks at first glance there's a lot of things going on, but the way we should approach this position is by priority. So what is our biggest priority right now? Well, I would think well the queen is under attack, so we have to deal with this somehow. So let's start with captures, as we always should. If we take the knight on d4, then it's protected by the rook on d6, so that's obviously no good. And okay, this looks tempting. Queen takes c8, king takes, and rook f8. And rook f8, but unfortunately it's not made because black has rook d8. So what else can we do? The captures don't work, obviously. The checks don't work either. So how about simply moving the queen, like let's say queen f7. We're threatening mate on the 7th rank, but unfortunately black's first. Black plays queen takes c3 check, and we're going to be mated for. Is there any other way to deal with this threat? I would hope that gradually you would have came up with this move, rook f8. It's a very strong move because the point is we pin this rook on c8. So our queen's not attacked, and we're simply threatening to take the rook with either piece for checkmate. Of course, you cannot take back because we play queen c7, king a, queen b7 with checkmate. So once we notice this idea, it becomes very clear that this is very strong. So how can black deal with this? You cannot take our rook, as we just mentioned. You can try to block, let's say knight c6, but then it's simply mate. We simply trade the rooks. Queen f7. Notice how our king is so safe the whole time, and when we have multiple mating threats, so 7th rank, and black just busted here. So black's best defense, I guess, is probably knight f3 check. Gives a check to our king and poses the question where our king will go. Obviously, we cannot take the knight right now because our queen is still under attack. Taking the knight would remove the pin. So after knight f3 check, we have to choose a square for our king. Well, the best move is king d2. I think it's quite logical. We avoid a lot of checks. King d2. I think black should play knight g1. There's nothing better. Black can also try knight d4 check, but it's pretty much hopeless. Black will just run off checks. For example, we take queen h5 check. This is the point. King d2, queen h6 check, but he simply runs off checks. King d1, queen h1 check, we block knight d1, queen h5 check, our king just runs away, king c1, queen h6 check, king b2, finally he runs off checks, and not only is he getting made, but he's also down a piece, so this is complicated. I believe in the game black played knight g1 check, then white simply plays king e3. I mean, this is a typical idea when we're dealing with checks from the knight. It's usually good to place the king diagonally one square, two squares from the knight, because as you know, there's no checks from the knight. So this is a very typical idea, especially in the endgame. So it also works here, even though our king's in the center, but our pieces are so strong we control so many squares. So black has no checks here. I think black took on d3 or something, and then white simply recaptured the king. Again, no checks, and here black resigned. So yeah, so the main point of this puzzle was just noticing this nice move rook f8, where we're not only dealing with the threat, but making our deadly threat of our own, and black simply runs off checks, and in the game, here white won the game. So the next position the next position is this position. position. Yes, white to play. So first off, we should notice that g7 is guarded by the rook, so queen takes g7 obviously doesn't work. Our next thought might be maybe we can take on d5 to distract the rook, but it's guarded by the queen. So it looks like black has everything under control. Bishop takes d5 doesn't work, queen takes g7 doesn't work, but again, we should not forget to check all our checks and captures. By process of elimination, we find that f7 is actually very strong because we're cutting off the rook's defense to the g7 pawn. Therefore, black's forced to take with the rook. There's nothing better. But now that the rook has moved from d7, we got a d8 square for our queen d8 check, king h7, and now we take on d5. That's the whole point. And now we're forking. Actually, we're attacking three things, so black really has not much choice here. Knight f2 check, and what else? White just plays king g2. And okay, we're attacking the knight, we're attacking the queen, and attacking the rook. And for example, if the black queen moves somewhere, we also can play queen h4 check, forcing the king to g8, and then take the rook on f7 with check, and then we pick up the knight with our queen to make sure there's no perpetual. Yeah, so white has tons of threats. It's not much black can do. I think black play queen f6. He's stopping the check on h4. He's attacking our queen, so f7, we cannot take on f7. Okay, but in this case, we simply trade the queens. He has to take with the rook because his rook is hanging. We pick up the knight, and unfortunately for black, rook takes f5. We have bishop f3. And we're simply up a piece in the endgame with a winning position. So once again, the same method of looking for forcing moves such as checks and captures, and from there we can easily stumble upon this move f7, cutting off the breaking the coordination of the black pieces actually because we overload the rook to defend d8 and g7, and since we opened the diagonal for the queen. So next position is a fun one. It's really nice. This position, white's move, and okay, white's up a queen, but black's next move is going to be a promotion, and seemingly looks like we can't stop it. Obviously, the only capture we have is taking the pawn c2, but that doesn't lead us anywhere. The checks obviously don't do anything. So we have to stop the promotion somehow. So obvious move is knight e2. We stop the promotion of the queen, but then we notice this fork in e4. But in such situations, we shouldn't stop here because, as I specified, this was a study, which means it usually contains nice ideas. So we can't just how do I explain? So usually in studies, you have to overcome some resistance in a beautiful manner. So this when we see such things, we shouldn't just immediately discard it and continue. So after 94 check, where do we put our king? Well, we definitely want to avoid checks. If we go to e3 or e1 after the capture on d2, black will have multiple checks. On f3 and f1, this is also bad because taking on d2 comes with a check. g3 is illegal, but g1 is also bad because then after taking, black will have knight f3 check. So then it becomes clear where we should put our king g2. And now black is forced to take. What else? But black has no checks. And now here comes the point of the study. We play knight c3 check, force the king to c1, and we play knight c5. And this is really beautiful. This construction on the queen side is almost a mirror image. Like black is in Zugzwang. If if he moves either knight, which are his only legal moves, then it's simply checkmate. For example, if knight dc4, then knight b3 is checkmate. If knight bc4, then knight d3 is checkmate. So, and black bishop can't move, the king can't move, pawn can't move. So, next move, white will checkmate either knight d3 or knight b3. So once again, this is a special type of puzzle where the solution involves a beautiful idea, and we usually in such positions we should continue our train of thought and overcome resistance. We shouldn't just stop because we lost a queen, but it might contain such a beautiful idea. So the next position I think was played by Kasparov. Why was Kasparov? I think it was against Karpov, and he played a beautiful game and now has to just finish off the game. He just has to finish off the game. One more moment. Yeah. White is a dominating position. As you can see, this bishop on d5 is really nice. The black is attacking this and challenging the center, and well, if he can trade two pairs of rooks, then black will be completely fine with a draw. Once again, this is a normal type of puzzle, so again, we should consider checks and captures. Okay, you could consider moves like rook d8 check, but it doesn't help. It's takes, and black has, for example, rook e7 is good enough, and we're not winning any material. Checking f7 is a discovery on the d7 rook, but then he can just take with either the queen or the rook. Let's say the queen, and he protects the rook, so we just lost the bishop. So that doesn't work either. Obviously, queen takes c7 doesn't work. What's another capture? We can capture on c6, but this is not good because, well, for one, black can just capture back if he wants. To make it simple, black can capture it back, and again, we're not winning anything. So then let's consider this with queen takes c7. At first, it looks insane. We just gave up our queen for nothing, but then after one move, we should again continue with the forcing move. What else? So we saw that this opened the e8 square flush, so rook e8 check. Kh7, again, we should not stop. We'll continue our calculation. Kh7, what can we do? Well, it looks very natural. Bishop e4 check, again, a forcing move, and we have a discovery against this rook. G6, rook takes d7, and then when we get to this position in our calculation, we realize we're completely winning because just look how strong these monster rooks are compared to this queen. And black has so many problems here. The king is weak. He's losing a bunch of pieces on the queen side as well. For example, bishop a6 and bishop takes c6, and black cannot recapture because rook takes f7 is checkmate. Another choice that's also good is bishop d5. Simply getting up on this f7 pawn, and black can't defend that either. So here black would have to play king g7, and at the very least we can get a completely winning endgame here as well. Bishop takes c6 is also very strong. Just take a free piece, and we'll continue our attack. So yeah, I think if you go through this method of once again checking the forcing moves, it shouldn't take you too long, I believe, to find all these forcing moves, and we're just simply winning the game. Next position. Now this one is really interesting. This position. this position, it's white to move, and this one is has quite a level of difficulty here. So at first glance, it looks like nothing's really going on. I mean, we can notice that the black king is, I mean, the black king is kind of airy, like there's not many defenders around this king. So, I think once again, you can use this method of looking for forcing moves such as checks and captures. And, okay. Obviously, taking on f5 doesn't work. We have no checks, so what about this capture on e5? Well, it turns out that this actually works. And, okay, most logical start with the knight, which is also winning, but then after knight, black can play something like knight e6. And, okay, we took a pawn and we're winning, but it turns out that even strongest rook takes e5, because after rook takes e5, the thing is, we're hitting the knight on c5, we're hitting everything with tempo, we're threatening coming with on e7, bishop takes, knight takes. And we got the same thing because black is forced to take. Because we removed, in this position that's holding the black position together is the bishop on g7. Once we simply remove this bishop, we can see how weak this long diagonal is. We have a dark square bishop that can use this diagonal and the queen. And this light square bishop is also very strong, cutting off the g8 square. So this is the key point of the position, so we can give up our rook at any cost just to attack the king. And after knight takes e5, okay, black actually has nothing better than just taking this knight, because anyway, white will use this diagonal, and if black doesn't take, then white just has an extra defender attack himself. So queen takes e5, and here, as always, we shouldn't stop. As always, we shouldn't stop, because in calculation, obviously there's going to be some resistance, and if we stop after any side of trouble, then obviously won't get anywhere. So we remove this bishop on g7, so then we continue, and we see that this bishop belongs on this diagonal, as these two bishops will cut through black's position. So then it becomes very clear. We should play bishop c1. Very nice move. Black simply doesn't have a dark square bishop, so he can't contest this diagonal. Just look how weak the black king is. Same thing, and queen e7. And we're spending the pin black's queen. So now we have to think again. Most natural is bishop b2 check, but after rook f6, it's not clear how we win. But in such calculative positions, we shouldn't go with our first instinct or what's most natural. We should calculate and consider all moves. In this case, we find that queen c3 check is even stronger. After queen c3 check, well, black has to play rook f6. What else? Black can try queen g7, but then we simply put more pressure, bishop b2. Okay, and let's see, trades, rook f6, bishop f6, check queen. Black simply has no resources to defend along diagonal. If queen f6, then we take rook g8, king g7, rook g8 check. So queen c3 check, rook f6, black has to play. But now we see the point of why we use the queen to check and not the bishop. The bishop's very strong here because it can go here, but the key point is it controls h6 square. So now we have another nice combination. Queen takes f6, queen takes, and rook d8 check. And we see the point of queen c3 instead of bishop b2. For rook g8, the bishop takes away the h6 square. That's mate. And yeah, the final thing is if queen takes d8, then bishop b2 check. Really picturesque position. Black has loads of material, but white simply mates black. with these two bishops. Really, really pretty. It should be to check, for example, queen f6 or queen d4, doesn't matter. Just pick up the queen, it's checkmate. Yeah, I think this position shows the importance of how when the king is very weak, many times material doesn't matter that much. In this position, we sack a whole rook, or this. It's also good, not as strong, but it's also winning. We sack the whole rook just to remove the dark square bishop of black, since we notice how weak black's position is. Another indicator why this works so well is because let's take a look at black's position. We see that he has two pieces that haven't really developed. So for the moment, we're actually playing a rook and a piece up. So if we can play forcefully, not giving black any time to develop, then we can take advantage of our lead in development here. And that's true in this case because we're playing all captions, all forcing moves, and bishop c1 is a forcing move too because we're threatening to pin the queen. These are all forcing moves, and we see that black has no time to involve his rook and bishop, which means in reality, white wasn't really down material with this rook. So this is a good principle to keep in mind. If many times when the opponent is undeveloped, it's almost like he's not playing with the pieces that are undeveloped. The next position. This one is also really, really beautiful. So this is the position. Okay, the original position was without the black pawn in a7, but I added it there to make the puzzle winning for white, because without the pawn in a7, black had better defenses. But okay, but anyway, we should find what to do here. We know that we're down a piece, and black is threatening this idea. Not threatening, but if let's say the white queen moves, then rook takes a2 is an idea with idea queen a5 and queen a1 with mate. So we're down a piece. It looks like there's not much going on, and black has everything under control. Let's consider capturing some checks. Well, we can try knight takes f6. Knight takes f6. Black simply recaptures the bishop, extra piece. We can try rook takes h7, but black simply takes rook and we have no attack. Well, as I said, queen takes f4, but again, simply no attack. We're not doing anything. So you have to use a bit of our imagination here. Let's imagine if we could somehow distract this bishop on c3. Let's say black had to take on f6 with the pawn. Then we can simply mate even with the two rooks. The two rooks are enough to mate because we can simply chase this king over here. And we'll have rook e7 mate. Imagine the bishop's on c3. So how can we achieve this? And it becomes quite clear that we should play the move queen e1. A really brilliant move because for one, we're attacking the bishop. And if we regain this bishop, as you can see, white will just have tremendous attacking power. And secondly, we're obviously distracting the bishop, and we're also eyeing this e8 square. Because black is a weak rank as well. Weak back rank as well. So after queen e1, black should take on e1. Black can try queen b5, but then white simply takes the bishop with a completely winning attack because we remove the bishop, and now we have three heavy pieces of attack. Black cannot simply can't defend. So after queen takes c3, rook takes g4, f6, for example. There's many ways to attack. We can play, for example, queen h3 is also winning. Now white simply gonna mate with so many pieces. With queen and two rooks, it's definitely enough to mate. So after queen e1, well, what if black tries to move rook takes a2? It looks nice, why not? Rook takes a2. Again, black wants to sneak mate on a1. But here we have first. We take on h7 with check. If knight takes, well, then we have queen e8 check, knight f8, queen f8, h7, rook h1 mate. Because the knight was deflected from controlling e8 square. And if king takes h7, then we have knight takes f6 check, bishop takes, rook h1 check, king g8. And again, the knight was removed, so we have queen e8. So for queen e1, black really doesn't have anything better than taking the queen. But now, we play knight takes f6. Okay, if black plays h6, to avoid the mate on h7, then we have a sacrifice on h6 with rook g8 mate. And if g takes f6, then as we said before, two rooks are enough to make here. Rook gh1. The problem for black has once again so much material, but none of them are useful to help the king. Why is just simply playing forceful moves with the rooks, and black has no time to use this material to help. Rook gh1. So currently the threat is rook takes h7, rook h8, rook 1 h7. For example, if you play h6, some waiting move, then this was the threat. Simply force checkmate here. So what can black do? Well, the black king has to run. What else? So king g8, rook takes h7. Once again, we're still threatening this rook h8, rook 1 h7 mate. The black king has to run, king f8. Okay, a tricky try for black is bishop h4, intercepting the connection of the rooks. Here we have to be accurate which rook to take on h4. The correct way is rook 7 takes h4 because we're still threatening the same mate. And you might ask, why not this rook? Why not this rook? The rook in the first rank. Problem is, now black runs away, and we need the rook on h1 so we can have a check on e1. But now with the pawn, now the rook's on the fourth rank, the pawn f4 is in the way, and we don't have a check on e4, so we won't be able to checkmate. So rook 7 takes h4. Now for this, black has to play king f8 anyway, and as you'll see, it'll transpose to the same position. So king f8, rook h8 check, king e7. Once again, king h7, rook 1 h7 is mate. King e7, rook takes e1 check. Now we see that it's the same variation. For example, if bishop h4, rook 7 takes h4. King f8, rook h8 check, king e7, rook e1 check. It's the same position as this position. So rook e1 check, rook takes e1 check, king d7, and again we know the same idea. Rook takes e8, and it's again really beautiful. Black have an extra queen, but no way to stop the rook 1 e7 checkmate. What can we learn from this example? Once again, we learned that it doesn't matter how much material your opponent is up if you checkmate them at the end. So black had so much material on the queen side, but if we look at the black king, it's actually really weak. It's only held together by these two defenders. This knight defending the king side, and the bishop which defends the knight also holds together the king side. The queen and the two rooks basically aren't doing anything to help defend the king side. So since these two pieces are the only two pieces holding it together, well, obviously we can exchange the knight, but then the bishop holds it together. So then we should simply find a way, even at the cost of a queen, to get rid of the bishop, and then we'll be able to get rid of the knight, and then Black simply has no defenders at all. It's just two rooks against the king, which is enough to checkmate in this case. And our position for today. This position. Black to move in this position. A few things to notice in this position. Well, first off, the rook is protected by our knight. White is starting to get rid of this knight, and he's also attacking a rook on c6. So white is actually indirectly double attacking this rook on c6 and the rook on g3 because he's threatening to remove the defender on f5. So what to do? Let's go through the process of checks and captures again. Well, our checks don't do anything. Rook takes h3, rook takes g2. They lead to nothing. They simply lose a rook. For example, rook takes h3. White takes with the pawn, of course, and we achieve nothing. Well, let's move to captures. Well, it may look attractive to take on a3. Rook takes a3, and if the queen takes, then we take the knight, and 2 pieces for rook is a good trade for us. The problem is white takes our knight first, with check, in between move. We're forced to capture somehow, and then now he just takes rook, and we just lost the rook for bishop. That wouldn't be good. So what else can we try? Well, it also looks natural to take on d4. Why not? Knight takes d4. The point is, if he takes our knight, then we take his bishop with an extra piece. But what if he takes on g3? Looks like we again lost on a knight for a rook, which is not a good trade for us. But once again, the king is kind of in the open here. So can we take advantage of this single moment somehow? Well, I think as you become more used to this kind of puzzles, it should become easier to spot move like queen h4. Queen h4 check. Once again, it's a check, and as you have more experience, this should become quite an attractive move because if king h2, then we pick up the rook, and we're just up a piece as this queen protects this knight, and we're completely winning. So then what has to take? Then we should continue the forcing moves, as we gave up a lot of material, but the king is dragged into the open. How to continue to attack? Well, knight f5 check, of course. We give the check, and we cut off this e3 square. That's to come to g5. So far, in this position, we did this, we took the knight, and then we found the forcing move queen h4. We dragged the king further, and the king's already on g5, so we just should somehow finish it off. Because, well, we have guarded all its escape squares. So all we need to do is give a check. So we need to give a check somehow. We have a knight and a rook to do that. Well, a rook is way too far away to give a check. So how about our knight? Where can we give a check? So we can give a check from f3, e4, and h7 legally. But obviously we can't reach e4, f3, but we can reach h7. We can't go to f6 because the pawn's doing it, but then we see knight f8. Quite simply, and then we'll next move knight h7 check, we deliver checkmate to the top. So once again, this puzzle requires a few forcing moves, takes, queen h4, another forcing move because we drag the king into open, and then final move, knight f8, knight h7 is unstoppable with checkmate. So that's all for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed, and please join me for next week's explanation video.